Good morning, welcome everyone. I'm Nancy Kinder, I'm the Kin facilitator for today's workshop. If you get stuck with anything, contact me directly through the chat and we'll be able to help you. I hope it's going to be a fun and lively session. Just if you're new to Kin, Kin is a non-profit network of private, public and third sector organisations, and it's great to see so many of the current and past members and presenters and speakers joining us today. One thing that COVID has allowed us to do is to connect with many more people in this virtual surroundings. Obviously, we all want to be fit for the future, and the world is changing so much at the moment, and Kin is fully owned and run by Warwick Business School. So our our approach is that for organisations to truly be innovative, they need to have effective use of knowledge, ideas and information. And what we always try and do with our peer-to-peer conversations and discussions is help that knowledge flow to around your organisation to unlock new innovations. Richard, today's speaker, passionately believes that with purposeful play, that will help organisations and teams to solve the biggest issues that we're all experiencing. And I'm excited that you're going to be able to, firsthand experience some of these methods that you might then want to adopt to help unlock innovation and knowledge sharing in your organisation. We'll send you the links to this after the webinar, but wanted to let you know that we've got a really big event in September across 3 days, not full days, different sessions for Annual Innovation Summit, which is usually in March. But is going to be run this year in September. And then we've got a great lessons learned session run by Erica, our Kin facilitator, in October. What lessons learned have happened through COVID and things like that. So we'll send you more information on that. Don't worry, we will send you a copy of the recording, the slides, and the chat afterwards, but do continue the discussion. Anything that you've heard today that you try, share it with us on LinkedIn, Twitter, and do let Richard know what you found useful. It's important that we continually learn and grow together. So Richard, I've had so much fun talking to Richard over the past few months. Ideally, we wanted to run this face-to-face in Warwick, but it just wasn't going to happen, but we didn't want to miss the opportunity of doing anything. So some of you might have met him when he did a masterclass for Kin back in 2018 with Severn Trent. Thank you, members, for hosting that one. But he's got a wealth of experience, and really wants to help us make purposeful meetings through play. So you're going to experience that firsthand. Whilst I hand over to Richard, if you haven't done already, please introduce yourself on the chat, your name, organisation and where you're connecting from, and what one thing you would like to get out of today. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Richard. I'm going to stop share and hopefully, Richard, you can now share. Let's just check. Oh, no, maybe not.
If you make me co-host.
Yeah, now, is that working?
Yeah, that's perfect. It should be, if I do that. There we go. Excellent. Good. Hi. So thank you very much for everyone for joining today in the middle of the morning in a really busy time for absolutely everybody. Let's just take a short, really quick moment just to come into the meeting and put aside all the stuff that we've been doing this morning and the stuff we're going to have to do later on, and just sit quietly for a moment. Feel your feet on the floor. Feel your fingers at the end of your hands. Just take a couple of quick breaths, just in and out, and in and out. So that's just the fastest little bit of grounding we could do. I'm going to talk to you, I won't talk to you much about me, but why isn't that working? There we go. I've got quite a diverse background that has involved working with all kinds of different teams in all kinds of different types of consulting, strategy and branding, education as an entrepreneur, and most recently in digital transformation. And the thing I discovered over, or realised over quite a long period of time was actually that the skills I brought and the methods that I brought from the various different disciplines mattered much less to the success of pretty much any work that I did than the way that the teams that I worked with and the clients talk to each other, behave with each other, and most importantly, listen to each other. And as I was coming up to this understanding, I discovered Lego Serious Play, which seemed to provide a really good answer to a lot of those kinds of things. And the sense of aligned purpose that comes out of the playful stuff that we'll talk about a little bit today was really powerful. And I think right now it's never been more important for teams to build real alignment around what they do, to build trust, to build psychological safety into the thinking and the doing. And I think quite often meetings, even in the physical world, in fact, I quite often ask the question at the beginning of a workshop, what's the opposite of work? And everybody starts saying play, but actually very often people see meetings as the opposite of work. And actually it shouldn't be that way. Meetings should be where the magic happens, where teams are more than the sum of the parts. And I think organizations are starting to realize that. But of course, just as that's happened, it's now become more important, but also more difficult than ever to do that. As a Lego Serious Play facilitator, there's not a lot of demand for handing around bits of plastic in huddled up groups in rooms. And I've always been interested in why Lego Serious Play is so powerful, what's behind it. And so the pandemic's really led me to deconstruct the elements of it, to think about how they could be used in a remote setting, and sort of pulled together with other kind of more playful techniques. So here's what we're going to do today. The goal today is to introduce you to a framework for designing and running productive, inventive meetings in a world where most likely more of our meetings will be remote, but it applies to all meetings, not just remote meetings. We'll experience some elements of it. It's necessarily high level. I'm writing a series of posts on LinkedIn which will help you to consolidate it afterwards if you enjoy today. There's already a piece up there which kind of summarizes it all. I normally spend a minimum of an hour just introducing people to Lego in a workshop. So today we've got 90 minutes, but we've got no Lego. So you won't experience the Lego, but I hope if you haven't come across Lego Serious Play, you'll be inspired to think about it for your physical meetings, because when we do get back into the office and we have fewer physical meetings, it's going to be more and more important that they're really productive and inventive. A quick word on the word playful. It's definitely not the opposite of work. We should be really seeing it as doing work that is in a way that is exploratory, forward-thinking, positive, not fearful and defensive. And as we'll see, I think we are generally more fearful and defensive than we even realise in most meetings. There's a lovely phrase in Montessori schools that play is the child at work, and I think that when it's done right, work is adults at play, and that's the kind of way of thinking that I'd like to be talking about. The agenda, it might be a little bit of a whirlwind, so it's a combination of a couple of short presentations, some mini breakout sessions where you can do some work together, and a couple of possibly purposeful, possibly fun games. We're going to look at the problems with remote meetings. We're going to look at the basics of meetings, because that tends to be something that we forget and that are really important. And then we'll kind of deconstruct Lego Serious Play and look at what are the principles that we can bring into meetings to help to drive the purposeful play that we want to achieve. Importantly, I'm not going to talk about different tools like Mural and Miro and those kind of things. This is about the principles for designing and running meetings, not about the specific tools. You use the principles to help you design and decide what tools that you want to use. If you engage in the playful spirit of the session, here's a really important thing: you can't be wrong. Whatever you say in your groups on here, you cannot be wrong. It's impossible. Anything you say will be helpful. You're going to be randomly assigned into groups, and you'll be in and out of the rooms, but with the same people throughout. it is going to be a bit of a whirlwind. So, you know, kind of lean forward, buckle up, try to keep up, trying to do quite a lot in a very short space of time. When you're in your group, if you could choose a scribe who can write a few bullet points to copy into the chat, that would be great. And choose a timekeeper to keep things moving. I'll be sending broadcast messages to give you warning that you're about to need to come back. You should have received an email about an hour ago with a bunch of instruction slides from Nancy. If one of you in your group has that up, that will be helpful to you in being able to follow the instructions from the exercises. So with that said, just very quickly, because we looked at some of this before, Nancy, what are some of the things that are coming up as to what people want from the workshop? Is there any kind of theme?
Yes, there's a lot on that sort of online fatigue. So people, how do they, as we were saying earlier, spice up their meetings into productive, innovative, and good, and sessions that you want to attend and you don't want them to end. I think it is the session, and I think because we're all at this couldn't have come at a better time, because I think this is the time people need it most. So thank you for your comments and for all the introductions. I don't think there's much more to add than that. Sorry, Victor.
No, that's brilliant. Thank you. And that online fatigue thing, I think, is a really important one. It's why I want to focus today on the kind of the principles rather than on here are a few techniques, because the problem is if you find a good technique and then you want to use it in every meeting, and the joy of it tends to evaporate quite quickly.
Dilute. And actually, there's just the last one from Colin saying what he'd like to learn is when, what circumstances could Lego serious play be good for, and when is it not? When should we not go there? So again, anything, if you touch on that, that would be helpful.
Okay, I will. That's cool, and I'll deal with it straight away now. Which is my advice: is don't use Lego serious play online with people who haven't already used Lego serious play.
So we're doing that.
It can be helpful to, but it's you need to spend quite a lot of time introducing it to people, and so one of the reasons why I've taken this route is I think there's a huge amount we can learn from the way Lego serious play is constructed, but I wouldn't be using Lego unless in a very light way, or with people who've already used it. Okay, so you're going to go into a breakout room any moment now. Here's some instructions, and again, this is on the slide deck that you've been sent through. In case you've forgotten it, it might look a bit difficult, but I promise it isn't. And Nancy, we're going to just quickly role play this. So what I want you to do when you get into the room is I want you to tell each other the story of your name. Anything you like about something about your name, what it means, why it was chosen, how it came about, if it was a nickname, what you feel about it, an anecdote, anything, absolutely anything that you think might be of interest to people. Then what I want you to do is to, after the first person has done it, I want you to pass a ball, and I want you to pass it through your camera to the person who you'd like to, and say their name, and that person will take it from the camera and say their thing, and then pass. Could be the same ball, could be a different ball, could be whatever you like, to the next person. So that's your introduction. While that's all going on, I'd like you to add a number to your name. So if you don't know how to rename your yourself, you simply roll over your video picture and right click, and there's an option to rename yourself, and just add a number to your name, 1 to 5, that hasn't been taken by somebody else in your group. So I've done an example there. And then choose a scribe and a timekeeper. You should take about 4 minutes for that. Be brief on the name. Nancy, I think if you just want to put people into their rooms.
Yeah, they're in there. Do you want to do you want us to demonstrate it?
So let's demonstrate that. So my name's Richard Gold. I'm the director of Bulbb, and my name I'd say my middle name. My middle name is Barron, B-A-R-R-O-N, which was a source of huge mickey taking as I was a kid, and I would never forgiven my parents for it. And then, because nobody else had ever been called Barron until actually now it's Donald Trump's youngest son is called Barron, which just makes it wonderful. So I'm going to pass this little golf ball, and I'm going to just stick it through the camera.
Yeah, I got it very carefully. I'm Nancy Kinder. I married a Kinder. I wasn't born a Kinder. And my middle name is Joy, after my great-grandmother who survived the Titanic. So I think they all feel very special about that. And so they keep her success lived on through our middle names.
Excellent. Brilliant.
So if you start the breakout rooms, we'll let the groups find each other. And yay, that worked for a breakout room.
Welcome back, everybody. Okay, cool. We'll just close that. Multitasking, fantastic. Okay, so interested to know how you experience that. If you've got anything you want to put in the chat, talk about how you experience that. One of the things we're going to do, we'll share the chat later after the session, so that will all be captured. But just quickly, the reason for doing that as a breakout exercise, two really important things, particularly in remote meetings, is the first one is about really properly connecting at the start. Something that's intimate, that's personal, but that feels safe. Modeling vulnerability right from the beginning, and it's quite often we come from another meeting, we race in, and we start immediately, and we don't take that time to check in. Really important to do that. You'll notice that in that everybody speaks, everybody is heard. That's a really important part of it. And you can be asking lots of things. So I do the names because you've never met each other. If you've all met each other, things about my favorite question is around what's your personal weather pattern. It's quite easy to see what's going on outside in the world, but what does it feel like inside? Is it blustery? Are you being buffeted? Are you sunny and happy? It's a really nice way to start a meeting, and actually to really start connecting before you get into the meat of the meeting. And the second thing was about the handing the thing through the ball through the camera. Quite often, again, we can forget that we are all sitting in a 3D space, and it's quite easy to feel really disconnected. So use that third dimension. You can use different things all the way through the meeting, whether it bits the body, a thumbs up, body polls, they're quite often called. Everybody wave and be happy, that kind of stuff. And use objects in the room. We're all secretly looking behind everybody at what's in the back of the room. Actually bring it into the meeting and talk about what is something that's there and what does it mean to you. And equally, you could use it if you're discussing a topic and just pull a piece of anything that's with you to bring some of that 3D space, that we are in a room together, even if we're distant from each other.
What I've found is by passing it, you knew who was going next, so it wasn't that awkward bit of like who's going to introduce themselves next. You've had that moment to go, right, it's my turn because they've asked me to go next. So that played nicely. Although Sarah said she wanted more time, but that's fair enough. Everything's swift today.
Yes, we're racing through stuff. The other thing is it's good to keep it brief. So one of the things that happens in meetings is that people do online meetings as well. People will talk because they're facing a camera, and it's quite easy to, once you've got started, to keep on talking. So keeping it short and learning to do it, doing brief shares is a really good skill to have. Okay, so we're going to go back into your remote groups, which are all set up now, so it will work this time, honest. And what we're going to look at now is the trouble with remote meetings, and we're going to use what Lego Serious Play calls its operating system, which is I ask a question. Everybody individually has a little bit of time to think about an answer and create that answer in some way. Today, I hope you've got pen and paper with you. I should have said that before, but just write down your answer. Don't just think about the answer, write it down. Then once everybody's had a chance to think, you're going to share your answer with each other. So each briefly, in turn, tell the story of what the question that we're going to ask you is to think of a meeting that you've experienced that epitomizes what's wrong with meetings, possibly why you came to the session, and write down what was wrong. So then you tell the story to each other, again, briefly, 1 minute, and 1 minute each. And if you said something that somebody else has already said, just repeat it, or at least signify that you agree that you said that. And then you've got 3 minutes to discuss and come up with the 3 meeting issues, problems, challenges that you'd like to share with the wider group. And if your scribe could note them down to copy paste into the chat when back in the main room, that would be great. If one of you has the template, for example, which is on the slides that were sent out before, you could literally just type it in there and copy and paste it into the chat. So this is the operating model. I give you a question. You've got 2 minutes to, so not very long, to come up with the things that you think are wrong with meetings. You've got 1 minute each to tell a story. You've all put numbers next to your names, so tell the story in that number. Maybe start from 1 this time. Next time we do it, you could start from number 3 if you like. And then 3 minutes to discuss and come up. That's 10 minutes. So I'm going to put you back in your rooms and enjoy.
Please share your group's top 3 on the chat. I'm just adding mine now.
Right, okay.
We had a great discussion and we were so good on timekeeping. I was surprised.
We were early. Oh, yeah, we did.
Well, actually, one of the things I have found is that if you set the right expectation that everybody's going to get a chance to be heard, that there's a structure for it, and that there is a certain amount of time and to be brief, people do that, and then you find you have like a lot more time for discussion. And when the discussion happens, it tends to happen in that kind of brief, interactive, moving forwards and backwards, because everybody has already had a chance to think and to contribute, and really importantly, mentally, to be heard.
And funnily enough, one of the things of our frustrations was not being heard or not given the opportunity. So that structure actually gave us all a chance to consolidate what we were going to share.
Yep.
And then say it in our minute, because we knew we had that, rather than thinking, oh, we'll never get to our turn.
Cool.
So there's lots. Do you want me to read out what's coming back?
Yeah, do you know what? I think we're a little bit over time.
Okay.
I'm sort of looking through these, and there's really too many people leads to a poor meeting. I think is a really interesting thing, and you can do so much more with a few things. Face-to-face absence is bad, and a lot of people don't turn on their video and do other work. That's absolutely right, but equally that's partly you as a meeting organizer not giving them enough to do when they're in the meeting. One of the reasons why meetings are quite often seen as the opposite of work, and I'll come on to this in a bit, is that most people are sitting around doing nothing in meetings. When we do Lego Serious Play meetings and everybody's involved the whole way through it, people are really tired at the end of it, and it's because they're not used to working in meetings. They're used to sitting listening to people and at best thinking about what they're going to say next. So that's brilliant. Well, again, we'll send the chat out afterwards. I think what I'm reading there is quite very kind of common things. The ones I most often hear are this kind of one actually that is this idea that there's so many distractions when you're at home, and if you're lucky in a room where you can shut the door, but quite often not, there's just so many other things going on. You're not in the same room as other people. It's harder to time when you come in for a comment, because it can feel really rude to over talk over somebody, and really hard to find that gap, which you can do with your body language much better in a physical room. The whole issue around including everybody, including the people who don't feel comfortable talking in meetings, is absolutely intensified as well, because you do have to be pushy to get through, and a lot of the research is showing that the inclusion issues that you have in physical meetings are exacerbated in remote meetings. Obviously, you can't see those subtle body language cues. You can't see stuff out of the corner of your eyes, and everybody's in these little boxes on the screens, so you lose a lot of the non-verbal communication. What I've found also is that it's even harder to get alignment about what you mean when you start talking about stuff, particularly if you've got people from different disciplines and everybody's using their own language to describe something. We so often use the same words to mean different things. Much stronger problem when it's online as well, and all of this leads to greater level of disengagement. And what causes that is a number of different things. So one is the whole meeting context. So we're in a different place, and also we're in a world where things are changed and we're kind of anxious about it. So the way our brains are wired, we'll come onto that in a little bit, is really important. And obviously the technology gets in the way, as we found out even when you rehearse really well. But overall, what this really means is we need to listen more actively and much more intensely, and we need to do a lot of the things that we are supposed to do with physical meetings but don't. Like with so many things actually with the coronavirus, it's accentuated and accelerated a lot of things that we kind of knew were issues that need to be addressed, and they really do need to be addressed in the remote world. So I'm going to do a little bit of that's somebody's grandmother sucking eggs. So this is really the basics of meetings. I'm going to do this really rapidly, but I'm going to do it because every time I've done a workshop around meetings, the thing that people always say is the most valuable to them is the reminder of the stuff that we absolutely know we should be doing, and we just don't do it. So there's two really nice little concepts that I use. One is around preparation and the other is around structure. So all you have to remember is, for preparation you need a gap, and for structure it needs to be really clear, and the colors are the RGB and CYMK, because that's the basic building blocks of anything that you print. So what do we mean by these? So preparation: goal, agenda, plan. We all know we need to do it. We need to know what is the purpose of the meeting. We need to have an agenda so that we know what it is we're going to cover in the meeting, and we need to have a plan for how we're going to do that. Now, in the remote space, that's even more important. People coming into the meeting really need to know why they're there. They need to be able to prepare in terms of the agenda, and having a plan, particularly if you want to do more than just have a free-form conversation, which can be really ineffective, is also really important. It's great if you are able to let people know in advance what's going to happen with the plan. So goal, agenda, plan. Been doing that in meeting workshops, meeting trainings forever. We just don't do it and in the physical world. And if we do it in our heads. Online, even more important. And in terms of structure, this is a really lovely thing that comes out of the coaching literature. A guy called Peter Hawkins created it, and again, it works really well for online meetings. So at the beginning, connect and check in. So we did that at the beginning of the meeting. We connected by getting everybody to first connect with the meeting. So that's why I just did that little grounding exercise at the beginning, and then do that emotional check-in with, in this case, a story about our names. Then a time to listen, to get people to feel like they're being heard in the meeting. So we did that just now with our trouble with remote meeting session. And then you get into the exploration. So what are the 2 or 3 things that you're really going to discuss, that you're really going to work on? That's, you know, the kind of the meat of the meeting. And use the word explore. I think it's a really good word, because it's not about coming up with an answer. It is about being exploratory, open, and it's a part of the meeting where people feel like what they're doing is finding out new stuff together and contributing, and you know, when you're exploring, it's fine to go wrong, and it's all about learning. Once you've done that, again, we quite often forget to do this in physical meetings, but what are the actions we're going to take as a result of the meeting? And then a little bit of reflection at the end that helps to kind of close it off and helps people to really take in what it is that they've learned from the meeting. As we're particularly in this online world, what worked, what didn't work, as a way of improving the meeting next time. So not just the output of the content that you're trying to do, but also the process. So you're continually improving it, and that brings people back into the next meeting in a more engaged kind of way. So those are the basics, and they'll be on a slide further on, which you can take away and refer back to.
There's a question actually. What was the difference on the gap between agenda and plan?
So the agenda. So the agenda is literally the topics we're going to. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are the things we need to cover. The plan is, how are you going to do it? So are you going to do it as a? This bit is me just doing a presentation and then take questions. Is it about getting everybody's input and saying, right, I want everybody's input
ahead?
Question. Yeah. Here are have 2 minutes to think about it, and then I want to get everybody's input, and then we'll talk about it, which is the best way for a kind of collaborative piece. But or it might be we need to create a whole bunch of ideas. We're going to do it on Miro or Miro, and this is the process for doing it. We're going to start in this bit. It's a roadmap for how you're going to move around.
Yeah, it's much more the kind of the detail of how specifically we're going to do this. Is it a slide? Is it a poll? Is it a conversation, etc.? Isn't it? It's that kind of, it's that next level of granularity.
Exactly. And with a Lego Serious Play workshop, we do it in the physical world in a lot of detail, because it's a thing that people aren't used to. We don't naturally know, intuitively know what we're doing. And you want to build it in a really kind of clear way for people. Similarly, we're going into these online meetings. We don't really know how they work. We're all making it up as we go along. So, and we'll do it in different ways. So let's be really clear about how it works, how the particular meeting wants to work.
Great, thank you.
Right, a little exercise for you back in the breakout rooms. So this is a really easy task. All you've got to do is count to 25. And the way it works is you're going to do it as a group exercise. Each person is only allowed to say one number at a time. It's a random order, so you can speak whenever you want to speak. If 2 people speak at the same time, you have to go back to 0. Now, and when you've counted 25 as a group, you come back to the room, or if you don't manage it, I'll bring you back. Remember, you can't say anything that's wrong during this exercise, during this whole workshop. Nancy, should we just do an Erica?
Yeah, and Louise, if you're there.
So just the 4 of us. Could everybody else just turn your video off? And Louise, turn yours on.
Yeah, she's there.
I'm here.
Oh, she's just not come on.
There we are. Can see you.
Louise, can you say something and then you'll just
Yeah,
come?
she's there.
Yeah, I'm here, Richard.
No, I can see you now. Brilliant. Okay, so 1.
2.
3.
4.
Oh.
1.
You can get past 1. Excellent. Go on.
1.
2.
3.
4.
Right. Okay. You're going to need breakout rooms.
How difficult is this?
You've got 2 minutes. See if you can get to 25.
Okay, we came back, Richard, because we did it very quickly. Because we
Did you?
well, we see where Scott, he was a good organizer, and he planned a method for us.
Oh, excellent. That can happen. Right, I'm going to bring people back in 15 seconds.
I'm surprised no one else has done the same thing, though. Interesting that when we did our demonstration, we just went at it randomly, and it's a pain. Whereas in our group, we came up with a process. And
we did the same. Yeah, we went just, our number order.
Yeah.
So we were like, right, done.
We did exactly the same, Caroline, but we did it much quicker than you did.
Oh no, we had a little chat afterwards. We were done in seconds.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, hopefully everyone's coming back now.
We thought about that, but we decided it wasn't random, so
yeah,
we didn't do a strategy.
Yeah, you didn't. The people who organised it in that using those numbers, I knew that was a risk. They didn't follow the random instruction, but that's fine. But that's absolutely fine. You can't do it wrong. You can't do it wrong. So a couple of groups came back, and they came back because they used the numbers that you put on your names right at the beginning. That wasn't the intention. The intention was to have some fun getting it wrong. I mean, it's interesting. I wonder if did people try any strategies when they failed, and did anybody find failing was a bad thing, and not being able to work it out was a feeling of failure, or was it just some fun? And I think one of the really important things, and you can do it a bit in physical meetings, but you have to actually make it happen in the remote world, to make the whole kind of exploration bit fun and make it okay to fail. I literally did that as an exercise just to give you a break from the meeting stuff, and so I hope it was fun. The other bit of it, though, is actually training yourselves to do some active listening and to really be looking for the clues, because that's what you were doing when you were trying to work out, is somebody going to say something? And it's actually a really good training exercise, and I've done it with a couple of teams where we do it every time we meet, as a way of really kind of engaging ourselves in being with each other and trying to listen to each other's cues. Right, we are a bit behind schedule, so I'm going to race through and talk to you a little bit about Lego Serious Play and the principles behind it that I think we started to be using in this session, and that you can take into other sessions. So,
do you want me to do the quick poll? Do you want me to do the quick poll?
Sorry, yes, please, quick poll.
I've just launched it, just really quick. We just wanted to know if any of you, and we've already seen some of you volunteering this in the chat, if you could vote whether you've heard of Lego Serious Play before or never heard of it. Maybe you've looked into it. Maybe you're an experienced facilitator in this area, and we'd just like to know from the group that we've got on the call today what experience that you've had, because that will help Richard tailor this piece. Right, that's nearly everyone. Right, I'm going to end the poll and share the results. So yeah, 55% never heard of it before this webinar, and then 23 had heard of it but not. So very few have looked into it and experienced. So thank you for doing that. That gives us a clearer idea. Okay. That you're in good company, everyone, and this bit, it's going to be helpful for all. Thank you. Excellent,
brilliant, thanks. And Richard Symes put just a question that his question hadn't been answered previously. If we don't get to it today, I'll reply after the session for you, Richard. So what is Lego Serious Play? We call it a facilitated thinking, communication and problem solving technique for groups. It is all about getting ideas out of people's heads and into something tangible in a metaphorical sense that you can then start to understand what people are talking about and to communicate with each other in much richer detail than is possible if you're literally just talking at each other in a meeting. models tend to be just representation symbols or metaphors for the things that you want to express. It was developed by the Lego Group as part of its strategy development process in the late 90s, but actually it's been taken forward since then and now isn't part of Lego. But the people who developed the process, including the guy who was the head of the education division, then continued to develop it and have been training a bunch of us as Lego Serious Play facilitators ever since. It's being used increasingly around the world. So that list of companies on the right hand side is some of my clients. That's just to show you I know what I'm talking about. On the left hand side, it's being used in all kinds of different types of challenges. And typically it's either a small group around a table working for half a day or a couple of days on a big strategic issue, or as in the lower picture, can be used in a bigger group of people all doing things in small teams, pretty much like breakout rooms, usually over kind of 2 or 3 hour period. It's great for developing a sense of team in those bigger groups. It has a really simple 4-step operating system, which is the one we operated on the exercise that we did earlier on about the trouble with meetings. So I ask a question. Really important bit about that is really thinking about what the question is. So there's a phrase which Robert Rasmussen, who developed the process, uses a lot, which I love, which is my question sufficiently unclear? Have I asked it in such a way that you sort of know what I'm talking about, but I've left enough fuzziness at the edges to allow your brain to start to roam in the ways that can lead to new and interesting thoughts. The second bit is individually, everybody has a chance to think and build at their own pace, in their own style. I've used this at international conferences, and being able to think in your own language before you talk is really valuable, in particular to non-English speakers who generally don't get to say very much in interactive sessions in conferences because they haven't got time to think and translate at the same time. Then everybody tells their story, and the great thing about that is because everybody tells their story in turn, there's no anchoring of the conversation from whatever the first person says, and there tends not to be any domination from a kind of the extrovert dominant leader. And everybody's listening with their, not only with their ears, but also with their eyes, and making sense of what they're seeing with all kinds of different sensory stimuli, with colors, the shapes, that allow them to remember and to understand and have a much more kind of aligned output of the conversation. And then what we do is we discuss and think about how to combine the best of all the ideas surfaced. So that's the 4-step operating system, which we can absolutely do in our meetings without Lego Serious Play. There's a bunch of different techniques which start with everybody building an individual model, to creating a shared model out of all the individual bits. We'll quite often lay out a landscape and then join all the bits together, so it's a system. And then once we've built that, you've basically built the system of the problem that you're trying to solve, or the team that you're working with. You can then start playing with it and doing what-if scenarios and practice making decisions. And as a result of that, you effectively created some ways that the group makes decisions, or the ways of that the strategy, the kind of principles that underlie the strategy, and so we tend to build those as well. That's a massively whistle-stop tour of that. And if you want a process that takes all of those in, it's the logos underneath are the ones that you need to look for, as the people who've been trained by the Association of Master Trainers have been through all of those techniques. But you can get lots of value out of the initial ones as well. This is some of what you get as outputs of Lego Serious Play workshops. In that there are government departments, there's a bank, there's a big construction company. it looks like your worst nightmare of your child's bedroom. In reality, everybody in a workshop knows what every brick means, why it's placed where it is, why it's linked where it is. It's a great way of building a really strong understanding of what the organisation is doing. I'm going to tell you a very quick story about one particular workshop. Anybody who's seen me before will have seen me talk about this before, but this was a big software development project that had a team of about 15 people on it that had just finished 18 months of creating the proof of concept for this big piece of government software. I asked them to build a model that individually, to build a model that represent one thing of what it was like to be part of the team. I gave him 10 minutes to build this. One guy literally, picked up that spiky plant thing, the little person, stuck them together, put them on the desk, sat back with his arms folded. And everybody was like looking, going, why is he stopped? What is he doing? And when we went round, I said, well, what is this? And he said, this is me sitting on a pineapple. So because I get given tasks to do that I don't understand why we're doing them, and they don't seem to be part of the project. They're really hard. I've not done them before, and it's painful. It's like sitting on a pineapple. And there was a bit of awkward silence, and his boss, the Scrum Master, said, do I give you those pineapples? And he was like, looking at the model, not looking eye to eye, went, yeah. And the guy goes, right. He says, does anybody else feel this way? And there were sort of 3 or 4 people like looking at the model, not looking at each other, kind of raise their hands. And he goes, yeah. He said, I understand that. He said, because I get given loads of tasks for the team to do because we're part of a much bigger project. And quite often I don't understand why we're doing them. And I push back on some of them, but I can't push back on all of them. And he said, sometimes you have to do it. I guess sometimes you just have to sit on a pineapple. And it was really interesting because what happened in that moment was the idea of sometimes you have to sit on a pineapple. The pineapples became a badge of honor. So he would now go into the fortnightly planning meeting, imaginary piece of fruit in his hand, and say, right, I've got a pineapple, who wants it? And everybody's hands goes up because there's this acknowledgement that it's a problem that needs solving, and it's a badge of honor to take on a pineapple. And it's really interesting, the depersonalization through the model. It's about the idea, not about the person. Is a really powerful part of Lego Serious Play, and is a really important principle to bring into meetings. How can you depersonalize from the person into to the idea? And there's a whole bunch of other stories which I haven't got time to go through now. But what's interesting is people will say stuff that they say, I can't believe I said that. And a large part of the reason for that is that they feel safe in the meeting. And what the other bit that's interesting is that I haven't had a single time when somebody said that where they haven't then said, and I'm really glad I did. And as an example, the picture in the middle here was of in a different government department. And this was a model that he was building of himself and his role in the team. And the person that's right on the edge on the left-hand side, that was him, and he was seeing all this great stuff happening, but he felt really disconnected. He told his team this, and it made a massive difference to the team. So it's really interesting if you can take out the personal bit and make people feel safe. It's really powerful. So very quickly, what does LSP do? So number one, typical meeting, 20% of the input, 80% of the input comes from 20% of the people. In a Lego Serious Play thing, and this is what we're trying to do here, everybody's involved as much as possible all the time. A really important thing about, there's a neuroscience behind this. If I ask you a question in a meeting in front of a bunch of other people, you can probably access about 5% of your actual cognitive ability. So that's why when we walk out of a meeting, the esprit d'escalier, the kind of, oh God, why didn't I say that? And it's because there's a bit of your brain that that screens out and inhibits any idea that might lead you to be ridiculed or criticized and kicked out of the tribe and eaten by the saber-toothed tiger on the plane. Because our brains haven't got past that feeling that any social threat is actually a mortal threat. There's a huge amount of neuroscience that's backing up, and in fact it's happened at the same time as Lego Serious Play has developed, and it's more explaining why it works than anything else. That picture there is called a homunculus. It's a model in the Natural History Museum. It displays what the human body from the point of view of the brain and how it engages with the world, and about 60% of the energy in exploring the world comes through the hands. So when you're picking up bits of Lego and sticking them together, and your brain loves patterns, so you're doing that with your hands with lots of little bits of shapes of plastic, you start creating different neural connections in your brain that surfaces interesting ideas. And because you're playing, you've distracted your, it's called the anterior cingulate cortex, which is the bit that inhibits things from coming out, and ideas that you didn't know you had come out. We quite often have people at the end of a session coming saying, I knew that, but I didn't know I knew it. It's a great way of pulling insight out. And what comes down to the heart of this, and I think it's quite at the heart of what we're doing today in this session, and the principles of Lego Serious Play, is about creating psychological safety, which is a shared belief by members of a team that the team is safe for interpersonal risk-taking. The research has shown, and Google did 2 years of work on this, that psychological safety is the key thing that determines whether a team is successful or not. And they'll put a whole bunch of really experienced, seven-figure salary people in a room to solve a problem, and they always underperform a team that is more psychologically safe. Their A teams always underperform their B teams, where there's no kind of expertise fighting for, the reason for being there is because they're experts. And the behaviors that drive psychological safety are all, LSP is a structured way to model all of them, and that the ability to bring those into remote meetings, even without Lego Serious Play, is a powerful way to generate that. And these are the kinds of things that we've been doing in the exercises we've done, and the one more we're going to do. So at the heart of all of this, with Lego Serious Play and with what I'm trying to do in meetings without Lego Serious Play, but using the principles, there's a belief that actually there's a vast untapped potential for people. People know, A, they know much more than they know, and B, we don't do enough to make the most of the resources that we've got in the room, and we need to consciously do that and do it in a really structured way when we haven't got people in a physical room together. So I'm going to go through the underpinning principles, which are, there's quite a few of them, but the idea of these are things that to think about when you're designing a meeting, and there are lots and lots of different ways that you can use them. The articles that I'm going to put onto into LinkedIn over the coming weeks will take each one of these in a little bit more detail, but they're kind of summarized up there at the moment. So the first one is this idea of 100-100 involvement, that everybody is involved all the time. It's a lean forward thing, that there's a kind of rhythm of engagement. The Zoom research suggests that you need to get people to do something every 8 minutes, otherwise they drift off. Obviously not having them drift off shouldn't be your measure of success. But give people a clear set of tasks and clear asks. Everyone should be thinking, responding, listening the whole way through. So each agenda item should have a clear ask for each participant, otherwise why they're there. The second one is this thinking with your hands idea, or kind of any part of the body. So the idea of quietening the inhibitors of insight, so that you are distracting your brain, not just sitting there trying to force ideas to come out. I asked you to write things down as a way of doing it before. You can use extended metaphor. I quite like the idea of, and I've used it a few times, where you say, this problem is like a boat. Describe the boat, and everybody writes down what this boat is like, and you get some really interesting, rich insights, and usually quite a lot of laughter, particularly if you get them to draw. Bad drawing is always good fun. And again, if you've created that safety at the beginning, and we know that nothing could be wrong, we're not judging the drawing, we're just trying to understand each other's ideas. Listening with your eyes. So this is really about the quality of listening. And there are kind of, well, in fact, there are two forces at play. One is the quality of listening, and importantly, its flip side, which is the being listened to. So find a way that people can use other senses just in their ears to be listening to stories. Give listeners a challenge, something to do while they are listening, so that they are really keying into the words and the meaning. Really importantly, and this is one of the biggest drivers of psychological safety in a team over time, and really important in a meeting, is the opportunity and the expectation that everybody will contribute roughly equally. So in a remote meeting, you need to manage it actively, because it's really easy for people just to start talking and they don't notice that everybody else in the room, even if they've got their cameras on, is drifting off to sleep. So manage that actively. And then the flip side of that, the flip side of the requirement to contribute, is giving people some time to think, because that's how you get diversity of ideas and avoid the anchoring. And it enables focused listening, because it means that when other people are speaking, you've already had your chance to think, and you're listening to what they say, rather than trying to work out how you can say what you want to say, and somehow link it to what they were saying without disagreeing with them. So make sure you give time to people, and ask participants to write their ideas down as well. So I've written them, and then I am heard. It's a really important part of keeping people engaged and feeling heard in the meeting. Back to the pineapple. In serious play, the model depersonalizes the idea. There's this thing about not looking in each other's eyes. It's the thing that takes the pressure off people, to allow what they want to say to even surface. Our brains will stop us even knowing that we think stuff quite often. So use Breakout, so there's fewer people in the room when these ideas are happening. Use a Miro or another whiteboard tool where people can anonymously put ideas up. So you're kind of seeing the hands, if you like, rather than the eyes, because you can see the work that's being done. Or things like, there's a great set of tools called liberating structures, where there's an exercise called 1, 2, 4, where everybody writes down an idea, you then share it as a 2, and then as a 4, and then with the whole group. And again, that brings ideas through without it being about the people, but about the ideas. Strong ideas, lightly held. So this is about moving towards a collaboration rather than compromise. So what quite often happens when we try and come to an agreement is people will think what we need to do is we need to compromise, which means I'll give up something in return for getting something that I want. One of the things we do in Lego Serious Play, through the ease of building models, breaking them apart and putting them back together again, is there's a much stronger feeling that we're collaborating on building something, rather than putting a bunch of different ideas and then taking out the bits that someone doesn't like. There's a trick we use called the red brick, where on your model you put a red brick on the one idea, the one concept, which really you want it to be in that final solution. and you have to explain why. And what's really interesting about that is it moves from this idea of compromise to this idea that I've got what's most important to me and I understand what's most important to everybody else. So find ways to have that feeling and a principle brought into the world. So whether it's a collaboration award, the greater than the sum of all parts award, do some collaborative idea building. The last exercise we'll do today is a collaborative idea building exercise using improv. So I'll give you an experience of that. The sufficiently unclear thing I mentioned before, really important, this idea of freedom within the structure. So construct questions which have a kind of a low floor, they're easy to answer, but a high ceiling that actually, if you go exploring, you'll find interesting things. And be really clear with people. It's okay not to be clear what I've asked you to do. Let's go explore together. And then really quickly, so being present. We did a short grounding exercise just at the beginning. Be aware that of how you're managing people's flow in and out of something that's comfortable. If it is a difficult meeting, acknowledge it, and if you're doing something difficult, then do something easy afterwards. Do something fun that helps to build that kind of sense of being in a shared space together. Really importantly, tell stories. The reason that I asked you is to think of a meeting that was difficult at the beginning, rather than just immediately write down things that are wrong with meetings, is that it allows more of an emotional connection. So share experiences rather than advice when possible, and try and bring in those more sort of non-transactional moments where you're, there's emotion and storytelling brought in. Commitment to outcomes. So when you build something with the Lego, there's a feeling of contributing to building something, which creates an amazing commitment afterwards. So again, when you're looking at this, think about how you get everybody's that has some of their thinking involved in the output to create much more commitment to the outcomes. And then that reflection that I mentioned at the end of the Clear process, that give people that opportunity to reflect, that something that goes beyond just the meeting topic. Because when we're online, we're in this different world that we're doing stuff that we're not used to. And it's a great opportunity to create some growth in how do we do this stuff online, that can come out of every meeting you do if you reflect on how you did it and how successful or otherwise you felt that you were with it. And again, it's about an execution, it's a learning focus rather than execution focus. So we've done the meeting, what did we learn from it, not necessarily how do we do with it. We are really quite a long way behind. Nancy, would you like to well, let's ask people, would you like to carry on for an extra 10 minutes beyond the end of the meeting, or do you have to go?
I'm going to have to drop off. We could run the poll of those things we've just shared and let people close, and then with who's left, we could continue on with the final exercise. I appreciate, apologies, sorry for overrunning. We were quite ambitious of what we wanted to do in 90 minutes, but we're quite conscious that not to 2 hours felt like to timetable it that way was, might put people off, because especially as we're trying to demonstrate the swiftness. But sadly, the mistake at the beginning cost us a few minutes. So looks like a lot have to leave. Okay. Before you go then, shall I just do this? And I'm sure I'm just, from the things that Rich has just gone through with you, You've experienced some of these firsthand, some of them you've heard about. What do you think you're going to try first? If you can share that with us, then we can say goodbye to everyone who has to go in one more minute. And then Richard, if you're happy to, there are a few people that need to stay, so let's finish off with a smaller group with those that are still here.
Okay.
Thank you everyone for your participation and patience with all this. I think you can see it's such a big topic, and I just hope we'll be able to run something in person again soon. So I'm going to end the poll and share the results. So it looks like Kier has got the equal airtime. Sorry, I think that's come across strongest today, that people are going to work hard in all meetings to try and create that. And then secondly, really follow that Kier model: clear, listen, explore, action and reflect. So great, thank you. I'm going to stop sharing that. And Richard, do you want to say anything to those that need to drop off now?
I want to say thank you very much for joining. I'm just going to put some details into the...
And we'll send them all the slides and the and your contact details and everything afterwards as well.
Cool.
And there's some questions in the chat that I'm sure we could discuss on LinkedIn and things on the groups afterwards as well.
Brilliant. No,
I think everyone's connecting with that poor psychological safety and the poor communications and how important, if we got meetings right, how that would help with productivity and efficiency and all of that stuff. Great. Well, thank you. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, everyone, for joining. If you can't stay on for another few minutes, please drop out now, and we'll be in touch with more details afterwards. For those that's left, let's play one more game. We might need to look at the breakout rooms. You might need to have a look and see if there's any.
Yeah, I'm doing that. And what
Thank
I'm
you.
going to do is I'm going to recreate them. Actually, that's fine. Okay. So let's just move into, we've got one more little breakout, which will be quicker because there's fewer people in each room, and then a little game at the end. We've been through all of those principles. We've experienced some of them in what we were doing earlier on. So what I'd like you to do now is in the breakout groups, so write down up to 5 ideas that you might try in upcoming meetings. Whatever comes to mind. Don't think too hard, and do write them down. Again, don't just think. Share your ideas. Again, repeat if necessary. And then in this one, each participant choose one of their own ideas they like the best. And again, if you want to stick them into the chat when we're back in the main room. And you will be back in, if I'll just give you a couple of minutes to do that at the end, because there's fewer of you. So you'll be back in about 6-7 minutes. Okay, welcome back everybody. Actually, there seem to be people.
That was really good. I'm going to add mine to the group. The big one for us, Richard, was building up that psychological safety in a new virtual environment as you go through. So don't assume because you're a team from before that you're immediately ready to go.
Totally.
And actually doing it step by step and then going to the big challenge or whatever, much better to operate, particularly in a virtual world. But lots of ideas shared.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, the pineapple. I have to say, so the pineapple, I'm probably going to write a book called Sometimes You Have to Eat the Pineapple, because it's now already being used in loads of organizations, because every time I tell the story, it turns up in a model and people just continue to talk about, God, yeah, pineapples. We have them all the time. And I think a lot, it's that thing, the thing that it's always needed to be said. And it's just so much easier to say it if you feel comfortable and you're not thinking about the fact that you're saying it. Brilliant. So thank you for that. I mean, I think just as a kind of brief debriefing, we'll save the chat and again and send that to you. But again, you know, the important thing here for me is, as much as anything else, is the process, that everyone's involved, everyone has time to think. You use your hands in some way. You commit to something, even if it's only writing, to avoid this anchoring. That you can hold these ideas lightly, but what's really important to you does get included, which is why I changed that last one to have that, you know, each person does have one idea that's important to them. Right, so just one last little game, and this is about meeting wisdom. So we've talked about some principles for great meetings. We're going to make them up. So this is an exercise in collaborative creativity, if you like. The idea is that we are going to do one word at a time. So in your group, I hope you've got numbers. They might all be slightly different now, but if you haven't got a number, you are number 0. Otherwise, do it in. You're going to go. It's like going round the circle. Take it in turns to say one word. Each principle always starts with always or never, and when it feels like it's complete, you just. And if anybody feels like, okay, that's the end of this principle, you just bring your hands together and go wise, wise, wise. And these are the principles that we'll have created. It's really important. Just keep it flowing. Say whatever comes into your head. Almost word association style. You don't have to be clever, funny, or interesting. Sometimes it'll be useful, sometimes it won't be, and you just can't be wrong. I don't know, Nancy, Erica, do you want to do a quick, and Louise, do you want to do a quick?
Yeah. Erica, you're on mute, I think.
And Louise.
Trial? Yeah.
Yeah, and Louise is there too.
Okay.
Excellent. Always.
Oh, hang on, I'm just being called away. Sorry. 2 seconds.
Okay.
No, that's all right. Okay. So just me, Nancy, and Louise.
Louise.
Yeah, always.
Remember.
2.
Try.
And.
Listen.
2.
Yourself.
When.
And oh,
Was that not my turn?
I don't know. I think I interrupted.
When.
When listening, I've done that bit. Oh, I've lost the flow now. Sorry.
That's all right.
I can't remember what we said before.
That's fine. Right. Never.
I think because I've got.
Sorry.
I think because I haven't got the 3 of us, I don't know the.
Okay, Nancy, you're off to me.
Okay.
Never.
Think.
About.
What?
You.
Are.
Saying.
When.
Wise. Wise.
Others.
Are.
Trying.
2. Oh, that was your turn. 2.
Trying to do it.
Wise. Wise, 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 wise.
I'm not sure we demonstrated that the well as we could.
No, but yeah, I hope you all get the idea.
It's fun though.
You've got 2 minutes.
And I think it'll be so much easier when you've only got your people in your group.
That's so true.
That's what I was going to say. Sorry. So it was good, the lesson that you said to do earlier, but let's not interrupt now. Sorry.
That's all right. Have a go. See what happens. You might.
Okay, cool.
Are we back?
We got there in the end. It took us a couple of goes. It's so fun though. Like you could, all our faces are smart. I hope I've taken some pictures of the rooms because we're all smiling.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Very good.
Good. Good. So that was really just a bit of silly fun to end the session. So, quick summary. Too far. Recipe for productive, inventive, playful meetings. Number 1, get the basics right. It's the platform for building everything, and it's really simple and easy to do. And then the added ingredients, these kind of principles that are just think about it as you're designing, and there are many ideas, many different ways of bringing these to life. I'll be writing more about this, so if you are interested, do link in on LinkedIn, and and you'll be able to see it. There are a couple of other things that we didn't cover around working with emergence and systemic thinking, which are things that Lego Serious Play is really powerful for in helping to train people to think about an uncertain future and to think more broadly about the whole system in which they're operating. And a question was asked right at the beginning: when can you use Lego Serious Play? I think if people are trying to get you to do that really complex stuff online with Serious Play, it's really hard to do, and it's the bit that I'm really looking forward to when we get back into the office and can start meeting together and making that stuff happen. So we're going to send out all the slides after the meeting, so the basics are all there. I created a feedback questionnaire because I'm kind of building this progressively. So your feedback on it will be really helpful. I always want to keep it improving it. There's a link to the article and my profile if you want to get those ongoing posts. And there's a paper being published in the Journal of Work Applied Management in next month, but it's available now, on the impact of team cohesion and psychological safety, which is building on some workshops I did with a charity in conjunction with Henley Business School. So if you want to find out more, that's a good way to do it. So that's it. Thank you very much. I'm really sorry we are around so far over time, but I hope you've had fun, and I'm really happy to stay on and answer any more questions now if there are any that you'd like to ask.
Yeah, we sort of build it as a taster because we just felt, you know, people's pain during this time, and we wanted to, in a timely fashion, try and do too much. But I hope that's given you a flavour, and hopefully it will help you explore more. You know, Rich has given you so many resources today to whet your appetite. Go and find out more. There's some experienced people as well on the group today. Contact with them. I mean, KIN's all about bringing practitioners together, you know, so that we learn and grow together. So, you know, use this chance to connect with each other. If you've got any questions on KIN or anything else on the future events, let me know. Louise kindly will be sending out the follow-up email with all the slides and everything, but anything you want to contact us directly, do let us know. So sincere apologies for overrunning, but maybe for everyone that stayed, it's been helpful or incredibly helpful. So that's lovely to see. Thank you for confirming that, and do give us more feedback in the survey. Thank you all for your participation, particularly Breakout Room 3, you rock. And thank you, Richard, for, you know, this is all volunteer, this is all prepared for us, and it's been great to share it with so many people today. So unless there's anything burning from any of you, we'll say thank you. Thank you, Richard.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, of course. Who's that?
It's Caroline Stone here.
Hi,
from DSTL. I'm hoping to sort of like blog about this and talk to on my team. Can I use the images and your examples and share the presentation? Is that
yes, that's fine. In fact, I've trained a fair few people at DSTL in Lego Serious Play. So there's at least 100 people in there who've seen a lot of this already, so it'll be familiar.
Oh yeah, so they can interact then. And
yeah, totally. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant! Thank you. Yeah. And just another one, if I can ask. So obviously, some people don't have Lego at home. You know, maybe if you don't have small children, what would you suggest as an alternative tool for that sort of physical, hands-on approach?
So it's really hard, but you can pretty much anything. If you think basically the point is to think what's the question. You can do it with a pile of matches and just move them around. Some people use coins to try and kind of position things near each other and away from each other. You could take a cuddly toy and think about the bits of the cuddly toy. probably better is to use the metaphor idea, where you say, okay, let's think about this thing.
Yeah.
As a, whether it's a boat or a department store, something that could be lots of different things, and then get people to talk about what they think that thing is. So people quite often say, well, I'm not creative, but if I say to you, think of a street, and then I ask you what that street is like, you can tell me immediately what your street is like, and it will be different from other people's street.
Yeah.
So you can quite easily, the metaphor things is probably better than a physical item.
Yeah.
When you're talking about complex issues.
Agree. Carl-Anne, I would add to that, we've done some other sessions at Kin where we've used a thing called the village, and it's basically a child's toy, which is small wooden houses. And we've done another thing at Kin where we use sand play, and it was just a cat litter tray with sand in it, and you could put anything in it, coins, bits of wood, little figures that you find around the house. So it's anything that creates a metaphor, like Richard said. So there's if you did some Google research on use of metaphor, you'll find loads.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Great. Wow. Thank you for all staying on a bit as well. That's I think everyone needs to go now. Thank you again, and we'll be in touch, and hopefully see you at the Innovation Summit in September, which is virtual and is available for everybody as well. So get yourself booked on that as soon as you get the email afterwards.
Yeah, thanks for a great session, Richard. Really good once again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
It's brilliant. Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.
Thanks, Richard and everyone.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks for all your contributions. It's a wealth of activity in the chat to digest.
Okay, who says
Is it just us now? I'm going to stop recording.
Yeah, we've got two Richards on the call by the looks of it.
They're both me.
That was funny. Oh, you're on mute, Richard.
Okay, who says
Is it just us now? I'm going to stop recording.
Yeah, we've got two Richards on the call by the looks of it.
They're both me.
Okay, who says
Is it just us now? I'm going to stop recording.
Yeah, we've got two Richards on the call by the looks of it.
They're both me.